can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Cabinet on Tuesday, the 15th of October, 2024, from the Walton Suite, Winchester Guildhall. The time is 9:30 a.m. My name is Councillor Martin Todd, Chairperson of the Cabinet and Leader of the Council. This meeting is live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel, and the recording will also be available after the meeting. Subtitles can be switched on, and advice on how to turn these on is set out online. Can everyone ensure mobile phones are on silent, and can I remind members to use their microphones? In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Please note that there is a fire alarm test scheduled for 10:15 a.m. this morning. Can I welcome the members of the public to the meeting this morning? We will invite you forward when it is time for you to make your contribution. Turning to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Lerney and Councillor Cutler. The second item is membership of Cabinet committees. As set out on the agenda, I would like to replace Councillor Clear instead of Councillor Scott as a non-voting invited councillor on the Cabinet Committee for Housing. The third item is disclosures of interest. I'm not sure there's much with direct county exposure, but I do need to declare a personal non-prejudicial interest as a member of the County Council. Councillor Porter. And
so do I, Leader.
And Councillor Thompson.
Just whilst we are on item 10, the borrowing depot disposal, just to make everyone aware that I'm the council's trustee on the Cultural Trust who manage our store that is currently on site.
Right, so that's a personal.
I think it's probably personal, but not.
I think it's not prejudicial. There's no direct financial interest for a trustee, I think. I have requests from councillors to speak, some of whom are here. I have Councillor Lee on items 8, 9 and 10. Councillor Tippett Cooper, who I think is on his way, on item 8. Councillor Horrell on items 9, 10, 13 and 14. And Councillor Cook on item 14. The first item for general, the next item is public participation. And I have one person who wishes to make a general point of public participation, which is Mr. Ian Tate. Mr. Tate, would you like to come forward and make your comments?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address Cabinet. I wish to ask about the progress with converting the Corner House North Walls into 6 affordable flats. The council has owned the building for 4 years and secured planning permission back in February this year, but little seems to have happened since then. In fact, the furniture from the cafe days is still in the building, collecting a lot of dust. None of the planning conditions have been cleared, so I was concerned that conversion was now deemed too expensive, although I understand the right to buy receipts may have altered the equation. As members may realise, refurbishing old and run-down buildings is very expensive, as can be seen with 59 Colebrook Street, which is costing the Housing Revenue Account, okay with some government grant, £610,000, and that's purely for refurbishment of an HMO rather than including any new build. Because of its challenging location and condition, the Corner House will be very expensive building to convert to the 6 small 1-bed, 1-person flats. When one takes into account the purchase price of over £500,000, together with the conversion cost, which I estimate quite accurately, I believe, at 800,000 to 900,000, this will make the small flats and the ground floor flats, 36 square metres, are actually below affordable housing minimum space requirements of 37 metres. But anyway, it will make it very expensive, and I wonder whether it's good value for money. You may be aware that back in 2021, and even before that, I raised many questions and concerns about 16 Tower Street, a council house which had been left empty for over 4 years, before the council decided to apply for planning permission to convert it into 2 flats. After planning was secured, the council then decided to sell the building at auction rather than go ahead with the conversion, got 418,000 in August 22, but probably lost over 60,000 in lost rent and the cost of planning. I then turned to the council's Dyson Drive planning application in August 22 for 8 dwellings, recommended for approval but refused by the planning committee. The failed scheme will have lost the HRA possibly as much as £250,000 by my calculations, and the council says it cannot appeal the decision because it's the applicant, even though it's recommended for approval. At the corner house got local member support. Dyson Drive didn't get any support either from the portfolio holder. Local member actually criticised the scheme. I'm sorry to come over as very negative, but with, I think, truly my own huge commitment to affordable housing, I do worry whether the council is getting some of its details wrong. I can't comment on the purchase of properties in private confidential paper. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Tate. Councillor Westwood, do you have any perspective on these issues?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I do. Start with Colbrook Street, Mr. Tate. So the position there is that this is a building in a conservation area on a block of land that's predominantly owned by the council. So it would not be right to dispose of that plot, as you can well imagine. Breaking up the block of land that we own here, that would be not the right thing to do on behalf of the council. So the decision was made to refurbish that property, and the decision was made to refurbish that property to support the rehousing of some of our Ukrainian friends and colleagues who are here at the moment. So the funding was agreed for 59 Colbrook Street on the basis that I can't remember the exact numbers, but roughly half the cost was funded through the Hampshire County Council grants scheme for Ukraine, and the remainder was funded by Winchester City Council. The work on that building, as you can see, as you've come in, is progressing really well. I've been inside it, walked around it, and you're pulling faces, but I'd recommend wait to see what you're going to get there. It is looking quite smart inside. And the scaffolding's just gone up so we can finish the outside work, windows replacement and so on, as you've seen over the weekend. So 59 Colbrook Street for the council will actually turn out to be good value development, which will bring a very valuable building in the centre of the city back up to a smart looking place that will perform a significant and important function for people who are potentially homeless within this city. So I think that is a good value for money for the council. Dyson Drive, you moved on Dyson Drive there. Dyson Drive was a scheme way before my time. I wasn't even a councillor when it was initiated. And that is a scheme that was built, as I understand it, in 2 phases. The second phase being on the green area that is not currently developed. The planning refusal was on the basis of loss of green space. I have my personal opinions on whether that was a correct decision or not. And I think you might know my personal opinion on that, as we discussed it before. The Dyson Drive scheme has not been kicked into the long grass. That Dyson Drive scheme remains as a potential site for us going forwards, and to move that forwards we need to address the loss of the green space in that area to be able to move that and bring back a further application at the correct time. So that I believe is not dead and is still viable at a point in the future for affordable accommodation. Turn to Corner House. The work to convert Corner House into accommodation was held up because of the nutrient regulations and requiring applicants to mitigate the environmental impact of the development. So during this period of delay, which was significant and has held up many building applications across the city and in the district, as you're well aware. And due to factors way outside of our control, building costs increased significantly, as did interest rates, to a point where the viability of the scheme was impacted. The planning application was submitted in February this year when nitrate credits became available through our upgrade of our own council-owned water treatment plants. So this made available the nitrate mitigation that we needed to be able to take the planning request and planning application to the planning committee. And I'm delighted to say in February this year, they granted us planning permission for that conversion of Corner House into accommodation. The question of viability has improved very recently in the last 6 weeks due to recent government changes on the amount of subsidy we can invest, and we are therefore already progressing with the scheme. And you're right to make comment about the use of right to buy proceeds. So that is an important change for us in many schemes, not just the Corner House scheme. The technical design work is now underway with the aim of bringing the outline business case to Cabinet by March 2025. If approved, we will then go through a tender exercise in the second quarter of next year, with the aim of commencing the work in Q2 next year. So by June, July time, somewhere around there. And the completion of the work will take approximately 12 months. And I believe we've already shared the dates for that work with you. Hopefully that answers your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that very comprehensive overview. And once again, confirming our absolute commitment to increasing the number of council houses available across the district. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Are you happy to agree that the minutes are a correct record of our last meeting? Thank you very much. And then the next item is Leader and Cabinet announcements. Councillor Becker.
Thank you. It's half term is almost upon us once again, and I'm proud to say that the council will once again be offering its £1 half term football sessions at locations across the district. We have them in Week at Stanmore Primary School, at the Garrison Ground, which is next to the Leisure Centre, and down in Whiteley. If people want to book on, there is a booking link on the council website. If they go to our social media, there is information about it there. So it promises lots of fun for children over the half-term break.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to announce that we have launched a digital skills programme to all our residents across our district. Currently, 22% of people within the UK do not have the digital skills needed for everyday life, and the Winchester District Citizens Advice has identified a digital exclusion within our district. The skills programme is open to all those who do not have the essential digital skills or the confidence or income to learn them, tackling not only digital exclusion but also digital poverty. The programme will cover the entire district, including our city centre, the market towns of Alresford, Bishop's Waltham and Wickham, as well as Denmead and other rural areas within our district. It is tailored specifically to whatever particular skill the individual needs, from booking GP appointments to sending emails and online banking. This will be through one-to-ones or in workshops and accredited office courses where the residents can choose one element or all. It is completely free of charge and has been funded through the government's UK Shared Prosperity Fund. By helping residents in this way, the project will help residents to overcome challenges that they are facing through the current cost of living crisis. It will help build resilience and improve confidence and support them in developing the digital skills needed to move into higher quality jobs and training opportunities within the district. Residents taking part will be using refurbished laptops to build the confidence they need to better understand digital platforms and technology. And I'm going to hold up this because this is the poster that you will find around the district on our notice boards and village halls, etc. If you'd like to take one, I have some copies here, but the local economy team have more copies. I think it's an absolutely incredible opportunity for our residents. And the course will run from now. We launched the scheme last week and it closes at the end of January. So there's plenty of opportunity for all ages to get involved and enhance their skills and therefore increase their job prospects at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. The local plan Reg 19 consultation has now closed. It closed on Sunday night. And now we've got the representations in, which are being analysed at the moment for consultation. So the whole process is continuing. We expect to have those available as responses by the middle to end of November as our plan. We're on time.
That's great news. Thank you very much indeed. And I have an announcement. It's actually an announcement that Councillor Cutler wanted to make. The City Council has successfully prosecuted secured another fly tip prosecution. A resident of Portsmouth has been fined £1,000, ordered to pay prosecution cost of £3,000, clearance cost of £67.64 and a victim surcharge of £400, making a £4,467.64 total. Most importantly, and the reason why we use prosecution rather than just sort of standard notices and other fines, is that the perpetrator now has a criminal record. In this particular case, a witness provided the evidence necessary to make the prosecution. As colleagues will know, we do have hidden cameras in high propensity fly tipping spaces, but we also rely on reports from members of the public. So if people do see evidence that can be used for potential prosecution, please do report it. We are very concerned, very determined to ensure that people become aware that Winchester is a place where we will prosecute and give you and get you a criminal record if you fly tip, and we have the evidence to prove it. Right, moving on to the next item of the agenda, the River Park Cricket Pavilion. Councillor Becker, would you like to introduce the paper?
I would love to introduce this paper. This paper represents a lot of extremely hard work over almost a decade to get to this point today. From the outset, I need to thank the Pavilion project members, in particular Mike Caldwell, who is here today and I think is going to speak on this paper shortly, for their dedication and their perseverance since 2016, when they first presented the Winchester Town Forum with their idea for a contemporary pavilion at River Park, part funded by the people of Winchester for the community. This new pavilion will replace the dilapidated existing pavilion, which is almost falling down. Since then, to get the pavilion replaced has definitely been more of a test series than a 2020 match. The paper today asks us to approve an additional £200,000 to bring the total budget to £2.3 million. This includes the commitment of the Town Forum of Winchester Town Forum SIL funds, and I can confirm to Cabinet that the views of the Town Forum have been sought and they do support using the funds for this new facility, one that the Town Forum itself has supported in various guises since 2016. Costs have increased over the years, and any further delay will simply lead to the project becoming unaffordable, which, given the current state of the existing pavilion, would leave Winchester without the ability to play cricket at the jewel in its park crown, River Park. We've sought to reduce costs in every which way possible, but we now must face the situation that any further delay will lead to costs rising further still. The fabulous new pavilion will allow the one pavilion to serve the two cricket pitches. It will offer the opportunity for even more people from across the district, because this will be a district facility, to be able to play cricket at River Park. More people will also be able to play cricket. The pavilion will be accessible, which the current pavilion is certainly not. It will contain usable female toilets again, which current pavilion does not offer. So there will be the opportunity for disabled cricket, far more opportunities for women and girls cricket. It will also provide a really important community facility in River Park for the people of Hyde, of Winchester, and for the district. We have carefully designed that facility to make sure that it is usable for a range of sports and other uses. The paper identifies the work that the Pavilion project has done in identifying potential uses, including park run, higher space for activities such as children's music classes, yoga classes, changing and toilet facilities for events such as St Bede's School Day, and potential overflow facilities for the rugby club. But we are now at a critical juncture. The existing pavilion has had a good innings, but it is way past the expected end of life. We have planning permission for the revised design. We have the best estimates possible for its costs. We are so very close to having the budget for its completion. To not proceed at this stage would risk the future of the council's best quality cricket pitch. So I urge you all to support the paper, approve the additional funding, and support this magnificent new facility, which we hope will bowl everyone over.
Thank you very much indeed. I look forward to them. Mike Caldwell, would you like to come forward and say a few words? Thank you. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, officers. My name is Mike Caldwell and I'm a trustee of the Pavilion project and speak for this group today. At this point, I was going to ask you, Chair, because the terrifying clock at the top there was going to remind me that my piece runs over 3 minutes slightly, but given our involvement in the project, I hope you don't mind me running over slightly. Having said that, Councillor Becker has just said an awful lot of what I was about to say, so I'll speak particularly quickly at those points because in case I repeat things. But anyway, I've been involved in this project since the outset. I first approached the City Council back in 2015 with the idea of replacing the old pavilion and scoring huts at River Park with one new pavilion serving both cricket pitches, and most importantly, for all year-round use by other sports and non-sports users too. The Pavilion project was formed. We produced a striking and innovative design with local architects AR Design. We registered as a charity and fundraised in earnest between 2017 and 2020. At our peak, and with the help of a small army of volunteers, we'd raised just under £250,000 from the community, local businesses and grant-giving bodies, and secured a further £295,000 from town SIL funds. Many in this room will know of the highs and lows we've experienced across the protracted life of this project. We're very pleased, however, that we've reached the point today where a firm commitment for funding and a timeline for completing the new pavilion at River Park is being considered. We thank Councillor Becker and Susan Robbins for their report. It has the full support of the Pavilion project and we urge Cabinet members to follow the report's recommendations. The new pavilion at River Park, and this is when I'll speak a bit more quickly, the new pavilion at River Park will provide excellent facilities for cricket, which are desperately needed. River Park is Winchester's premier venue for the sport. To have two adjacent cricket pitches in a quiet city centre location is unique. It's been described as gold dust by the ECB and is enjoyed by teams from across the district. The upgraded ECB-approved facilities will enable cricket to be played at River Park by higher league teams, women and girls teams, and those with accessible needs, and beyond cricket for other sports groups which use the park, as well as providing a hub for general community use too. Today is tinged with some disappointment and some sadness too, however. We're disappointed that the initial striking design was never fulfilled and would like to thank Andy Ramus and his team for all the time and effort they gave to this project. We're certain that had the project received more support in its early days, their design could have been built out within budget. It was unfortunate that 2020 saw unprecedented increases in building costs and the tender process for that design came several months too late. We're disappointed too that due to project delays, we have lost thousands of pounds in funding. It's been very disheartening to lose monies which we worked very hard to secure. At an earlier stage of our project, our fundraising efforts represented a significant portion of the budget. This has now, because of lost monies and cost increases, dwindled to a little over 5% of projected costs.
But our funding is still a very important aspect of this project in that it represents significant community and local business support, some 170 identifiable donors and many more non-identifiable donors who have contributed through fundraising events. The Pavilion project had 3 trustees, me, Tim Fell and Tony Walker. Very sadly, Tony Walker died at the end of last year, and it is with great regret that Tony never lived to see the new pavilion built at River Park. We miss Tony's energy and wise counsel enormously. So please, Cabinet members, no more delays, which, as we've already experienced, will undoubtedly mean more cost. Please support this excellent report and let's get the much needed pavilion at River Park built. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to you and your colleagues for all the work that you have done over the years to support this project and help get us, I think, a very exciting project potentially underway, depending on the decision we make later. We'll now have deputations from councillors. Councillor Lee, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a few quick comments. Firstly, I'd just like to say, as a keen sportsman, I'm always delighted to see sports facilities expanded and improved. So fully, wholeheartedly endorse the plan. I have a couple of concerns which hopefully Cabinet or officers can help me with. At para 2.9, it talks about ground maintenance. We're in a nature and climate crisis, and the IDVD contract, in my view, is suboptimal. You know, use of pesticides and herbicides, particularly where people are playing, children, is not a great look. So I appreciate the contract is in play, but I don't understand when it might be reviewed, and when it is reviewed, can we perhaps look to ensuring that things like glyphosate or other toxic chemicals are not used in close proximity to sportsmen. On the environmental considerations, excellent to see the solar PV and those considerations. I'd ask, is it possible perhaps to go another stage further and on the north side, the non-energy generating side, how about some green roofs? Again, thinking about our nature aspects. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Tippett Cooper.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, like Councillor Becker, I am extremely excited about this paper before you today. The new River Park Pavilion, an inspiring project that promises district-wide benefits and embodies the Council's values of community, health and sustainability. So River Park is, as you know, arguably the most extensively used and loved park in Winchester and one of the most popular parks in the entire district. And a huge array of sports, nature spaces, a skate park, children's play areas, pond dipping, wild swimming, all daily pursuits that are enjoyed by people that visit from all over the district. Now, I really want to emphasise how this facility has the potential to do far more than just provide a base for cricket in the district, although on that it is absolutely first class, and as Mike has just explained. This pavilion will be a vital community asset that will benefit a wide range of people across the district. And the seeds of this project may have started in a hope to create a new base for cricket, but I think that from these seeds, 1,000 wonderful community activities will spring, like the flowers that grow around the park. So I roughly tried to sketch out the uses and activities this facility could support. It took me not very long, to be honest. There's many more I could probably think of if I sat down long enough. So these include, obviously, home for cricket for the whole district, a base for the vibrant football and rugby clubs and activities, a huge vital base for the incredibly well-attended park run that happens twice a week, and the stats are in your papers, I believe, on that. A place for the huge array of local clubs and groups in the area, in the district. These include the Scouts, Rubicon skateboarding, local heritage groups, local residents groups. A base for a pop-up coffee shop, a perfect spot for kids' parties, and I promise you the district demand for such spaces is huge, particularly in natural areas. A base for local schools, a space that could also be used for vital youth outreach groups like Street Reach, and that would be meeting young people where they actually go. The River Park is a hub for young people, as many of you know. So, Chair, I could go on. I only got 5 minutes, and I really could go on. And indeed, the actual activities and uses that may happen in this space may indeed go on and will include things we haven't even thought of yet. The new pavilion will provide state-of-the-art sustainable infrastructure, being a welcoming space for everyone, and the economic value of this investment is also very, very clear. It's a modern, eco-friendly design representing a long-term commitment to sustainability and cost efficiency. And it will pay absolute dividends in not only promoting health and well-being, but reducing the social costs of inactivity and community disengagement. I'd like to also thank Mike and the Pavilion Project for their brilliant work on this, and also thank Councillor Becker, the Cabinet members involved, and all the council officers crucially involved in bringing this project forward. It's not just a wise financial investment, it's an investment in Winchester's future, the district's future, one that builds stronger, healthier and more connected communities across the district. And together we have the opportunity here with this pavilion to create a lasting legacy that will serve generations of everybody in the district for generations to come, making Winchester a place where not where people live, but where they thrive.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Tippett-Cooper. Councillor Becker, 2 questions for you about ID Verde and pesticides and a green roof.
Very much a shame that Councillor Looney is not here today, but we can pass that question on to her, unless Sue, you don't know the answer to that. We'll get you an answer. Sorry. 2027, the contract comes up for renewal. Councillor Lee, thank you, Mr. Hendy. So we will consider that when that contract comes up. The green roof, this design has been through many iterations. At one point there was a green roof, and I think we swapped the green roof for the solar PV. It was a trade-off. So the consideration was there, but in terms of the sustainability of the building, I think it was felt that the PV offered more value than the green roof.
Thank you very much. And on the ID Verde contract, it's part of the TC25 programme, which Councillor Cutler is leading, but which I have oversight of as well, obviously. And it is very much intended that the ID Verde review is not just about reprocuring what we currently do. There is an absolute need to make sure that it reflects the priorities of the council, not just, for example, in terms of our attitudes towards the materials that might be used and towards the approach towards cutting carbon. And one particular thing that matters a lot to me is to make sure that we put much higher priority on keeping walking routes open and clear, which is something that in places got dropped out of the current contract. There will be trade-offs to be made in terms of what's affordable, but it is absolutely not the intention that we reprocure what we have, and that we have a proper discussion about every aspect of what it is we're seeking to do with that contract. So, Cabinet, what questions do we have on this paper, if any? I think it's a very helpfully put together and self-explanatory paper, but does anybody have any questions? Is there any debate? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, just really to say that it's all been said before actually by Councillor Becker and also Councillor Tippett-Cooper, but this really will be a vital community asset, and especially in that part of town. We've already built a fantastic pavilion at King George V play area, and so we have a magnificent facility at that part of town. So I'm really delighted that we are at the stage where we can actually get on with the new pavilion in North Walls. So very happy to support the recommendations. As Councillor Tippett-Cooper said, this will be a lasting legacy for generations to come, and I'm very happy to be able to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. Most cricket pavilions you see in the countryside and in the towns are the natural home of one club. So I'm really pleased to see that this facility is actually available for anybody in the district. I think it's really important that people understand this is for the whole district. And the other part of that is that I think it was part of Mike, Tim and Tony's legacy that it was two-facing. It faced in two directions. And that, although perhaps the design isn't quite as it was then, it is now definitely still two-facing. And I think it's really good to remember why that is, so that two different teams could be playing at the same time. I think that's almost unique. I can't think of anywhere else I've ever seen that happen before. So I think it's a legacy to your interest and your continued pressure, which is really good. I remember meeting you many years ago about it. And it's also really good to see that not only will it be used by other people, but also other cricket teams from right across the district. And we must make sure that once it is built, if that's what we agree today, then that's something that's advertised very clearly right across the district too, but also to people in Winchester, of course.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Porter. Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Leader. I think this is a fantastic development moving forwards. It's called the Cricket Pavilion, but it is a pavilion. It's not just for cricket. I think it's got use for wider sports and activities, as Councillor Cooper laid out. I support anything that will improve the sports facilities for everybody across this district, and this undoubtedly does that. And that's so important in terms of people's health and building community spirit and so on. I think we need more of that type of investment across the whole district. So I'm very happy to support this proposal today.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Becker, any more cricket analogies before we draw stumps on this conversation?
Oh, I need to drop sticky wicket in there somewhere, but no, I just want to thank everyone for their words about this project, given that it is such an important, the pavilion's uses go far beyond cricket. I wonder if we drop the word cricket from the recommendations and instead refer to it as the River Park Pavilion, recognising, of course, the importance of cricket to the pavilion, but also in recognition of its broader community use. We have seen with KGV the use has exceeded, I think, what we expected. We have the cricket teams that are based there already looking to expand their use of the facility. And as Councillor Tippett Cooper, who has disappeared already, oh, there he is. Sorry, I've got my glasses off, I can't see you. We are in discussion with Street Reach for the use of KGV as a base, and I completely agree this would be the perfect location for continued outreach facilities, especially as we enter into winter months for River Park, to make sure that we do have that that facility available as well. So thank you all for your words, and I do hope that you will support it, as you have said you would.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you to you, Councillor Becker, and to Mrs. Robbins for all the work that was done to pull the paper together. A particular thank you to Mike Caldwell and the Pavilion Project and his colleagues, and thank you also for mentioning the role of Tony Walker. And thank you, colleagues, for your comments on this as well. I also very strongly support what's in front of us. I was talking to one of the organisers of Parkrun, and we've talked a lot about people coming here from across the district. In practice, people come here from across the country to do Parkrun because it is such a special location and recognised as such. And it's an important facility that is much loved well beyond the city boundaries. So this is a fantastic improvement to the park. It will be used very widely. It will lead to greater participation in sport. It will add new community facilities in an area where they're needed, and is something I can wholeheartedly support, as well as my cabinet colleagues. So the recommendations are on page 15 and 16 of the agenda pack. To remind you, we are approving an increase in the capital budget by 200,000. We're approving 1.5 million of district-wide SIL, including reallocation of some previously approved SIL projects. We're approving additional 200,000 additional 200,000 of SIL funding. We're approving the additional capital expenditure and a net increase in the revenue budget, and then authorising the corporate head of asset management to invite and evaluate tenders and to award a design and build contract in line with the public contracts regulations and the council's contract procedure rules. So those are the recommendations in front of us. Cabinet, are you agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to the next item, which is the Corporate Peer Challenge Feedback Report. Back in July, the City Council was visited by a so-called Local Government Association Peer Challenge Team. This is a programme run by the Local Government Association, which is an association of all the councils in the country, which works to improve how councils perform right across England. The challenge team consisted of the Chief Executive of Exeter City Council, council directors from Somerset, East Cambridgeshire and East Suffolk, 2 specialist officers from the Local Government Association, and the council leader of Cotswold District Council. And they reviewed our operations, interviewed a range of colleagues, interviewed external partners, and the objective was to review our operations, give us guidance on our transformation programme. It was an extremely useful and positive visit. We have, I think, a very encouraging report, which reflects very well on the Chief Executive and the wider officer team. So thank you for the work that you've done over the years that led to that feedback, and on the work that our officers do for us here in Winchester and across the district. They have given us 10 recommendations. And Appendix 2, which is possibly the most important thing we will discuss today, outlines how we intend to respond to those recommendations. The report has been published, and the action plan following discussion will be published as well. I have 2 councillors who wish to speak on this. First, Councillor Lee and then Councillor Horrell. Councillor Lee, would you like to come forward and make your comments?
Thank you, Chair. My comments will be very brief. I just want to focus on the one district approach. This is not to denigrate what we're doing already, but there is a perception, as you are aware, that those of us living certainly on the frontier, Central Meon Valley, do feel sometimes a bit of an afterthought. I don't have the answers or solutions, but I look forward to working with other councillors and officers to improve the one district approach as we take things forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Lee. And Councillor Horrell.
Good morning. And Chair, thank you for allowing me to address Cabinet this morning and for sharing the proposed action plan as a result of the Corporate Peer Challenge. This is an excellent process to engage in on a continuing basis and should be endorsed accordingly. However, can I raise a number of questions about the proposed action plan and the issues it is trying to address? The first is around the point made about governance and effective scrutiny, and it has been raised as an opportunity for improvement. I see this task as due for completion by December 24, but I don't see this topic on the group leaders' agenda for input to allow that delivery date to be achieved. The work of the policy and scrutiny committees is key to ensuring an open and democratic council. What does this administration propose to do in the next 2 or 3 months to the committee structure, if at all? Excuse me. Number 3, TC25. is clearly a key effort for the council. I would agree with the report findings that clarity on the narrative of the reasons, aims and relevance of the programme are not widely understood. Can I ask specifically, what is the administration going to do to ensure all members have clarity? We have regular internal communication currently, but this does not solve the issue. Excuse me. Number 7, member development is a key area upon which to build our skills. Can I ask that the group manager discussion is actioned in the next month or two, so any actions and budget recommendations can be built into our plans for 25-26, not 26-27 as currently proposed. This seems an unnecessary long timetable for actions that can get underway sooner. Number 8, a one district approach is a hugely important step for this council. How can we demonstrate, oh, thank you so much. How can we demonstrate the commitment to the whole district when so much of our regeneration plans are Winchester City based? We all recognise that when in the southern parishes, our residents' focus is not to Winchester, but to other adjacent districts. I'm delighted to hear about the cricket pavilion today and more recently the KGV facility. But again, more in Winchester. How do we balance for the whole district? How do we ensure that those other areas feel they're getting their share of the pie? Is the Cabinet therefore reconsidering its investment priorities to ensure that there is a fairer balance across the district? And if so, what does this look like? We talked recently at the Sport and Leisure Park Advisory Board about the use of the current centre, and that indeed we'd made investment in other facilities in other parts of the district to ensure that there was good opportunities for residents in that part. Again, these are important steps that we can take to ensure that we talk about one district as a whole, not just Winchester. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Horrell, and thank you, Councillor Lee, for your comments. Reflecting on each of the ones that you've made, the point about one district is an important one, and there is a degree that perception is reality. So if people outside the city feel like that we sometimes don't think about the whole district, I'm not going to argue with that and produce a long list of things that we might have done in other parts of the district. And of course, we have universal services across the whole district, such as waste collection, which are very important to us. But we definitely need to be communicating better, and something that we haven't put in there as an action plan because it would be preempting what's likely to happen later, is that I do want us to think very seriously about how we reflect that in the council plan. We have pride in place at the moment in our council plan. Maybe we need to be talking about pride in places or thriving places, and more consciously thinking about not only how do we ensure that every place in our district is thriving, but that they know that that matters to us and that we're taking appropriate actions on it. That said, we currently face the constraint, which was rightly identified by Councillor Horrell, which is that most of our land holdings are in the city. And so in practice, when we work on our assets and our land holdings, which inevitably is an important part of what we do, we end up working in Winchester because that's where we own things. Now, this isn't an argument for going on a shopping spree across the district, tempting though that might be, but it is something that we need to consider as well in terms of how we communicate and who we communicate to. Your point about governance and decision making, the reason it's not on the agenda of the next meeting of group leaders is because it was on the agenda of the last one. But you know, this is always something that we're open to discuss further, and if there are extra things that you wish to bring forward, or if after further consideration it's a matter that you want to give more attention to, then I have no problem with discussing that further. The question about TC25 in terms of the clarity of the reasons, aims and relevance, that is a point that is taken and is being actively worked on at the moment. The one thing that will form part of our next communication on that is actually a celebration of the achievements that have been made through TC25, the savings that the organisation has already delivered, and the improvements that that makes to our financial position, but also that enables us to tackle some of the new pressures that we are starting to see coming forward from other factors beyond our control, such as extra pressure on homelessness and temporary accommodation, which is common to many district councils. And another factor that's common to many district councils is the government's likely decision not to fully fund the cost of food waste collections. And finally, on member development, I think in terms of your point about timing is well made. I'm sure there would be some changes that would be able to introduce in the 25-26 year, but as you say, that will largely be down to the group managers getting together and moving ahead at pace. And certainly it would be my intent, though ultimately that is a matter for the group managers, it would be my intention to encourage that and to ensure that it happens at the earliest opportunity. So thank you for the points raised. Cabinet, are there any questions that colleagues wish to ask about the paper, and particularly the action plans on pages 74 to 76, because those are what we're being asked to endorse? Obviously, we're only in a position to note the report from the LGA on the basis that they wrote it, and it's not our report. So any further questions on the action plan? Any debate? Councillor Porter.
Talk today about one district, and I'd just like to say how pleased I was that the peer review actually congratulated both the leader and the chief exec for their cross-boundary work right across the whole of Hampshire and beyond. It praised the work of the leader and the chief executive on working with other districts and other organisations, and I'm very grateful to both of them for doing that work. One of the things we hear frequently is about our relationship with Push, but actually in reality our district looks to other districts for facilities as well as the southern districts, and it's constantly in our mind in the local plan and our relationship with other local districts, and also about looking at what our residents want in all of our communities. And so it is useful to have that in there as a reminder that it's a constant conversation, not one that just comes up from time to time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. Anyone else got any comments? Right. Well, thank you for those comments. I'm obviously far too modest to repeat the bits that talk about the leadership of the council, although they are available on page 51 of the report in the executive summary and elsewhere. But I would once again like to thank the chief executive and her colleagues for the work that they do. This report has been very helpful. It's given us some useful improvements to look at, but it does so in a context of being very positive about the way the council operates. And I would stress that that doesn't stop at the administration. It includes the way that all the councillors operate, and how we'll do our best to work for the good of the residents of our district. So I would like to thank the LGA for the work that they did, for coming in, and for the care and thought that they put into the report, and that the councillors and the councillor and officers that did that. I would like to thank councillors and officers for all the work over many years that led to the strength of the report that we've received. And I'd also like to thank colleagues and officers for the positive way that we're responding to the suggestions that we've received. Our intention to further improve and keep improving and keep finding ways to do better work for our residents. So we are asked to note the report and endorse the recommendations. Cabinet, are you happy to do that?
Great.
Thank you very much indeed. The next item on the agenda is the Bar End depot disposal. There are actually some display boards that are associated with that, which may be useful to put up against the wall and maybe take a brief adjournment for us to be able to look at them. Then, just for everybody's clarification, in terms of what's going to happen next, we will be I will introduce the paper when we come back. We will, because there are some exempt parts of that paper, need to decide after we've had most of the discussion whether we move into a private session. We also, of course, will have the deputations from the councillors before we move to that point. But I would now, while the boards are quickly put out for us to have a look at, take a quick 5-minute adjournment. But this is one of those 5-minute adjournments that is actually intended to be 5 minutes and not 10 minutes. let me know when we're thank you very much indeed. So we had a brief adjournment. There are some slides that were presented at the most recent public meeting that we've just been having a look at, and for the record, we will get them available in PDF form and make sure that they're available on the website, either under the RN pages or as part of, in fact, we'll include them as part of this meeting so that they're available there and all the papers are in one place. So, coming back to the paper in front of us today, I hope you broadly find it self-explanatory. This site has been listed for disposal for some time to enable its redevelopment, and after a thorough and rigorous process of disposal, we now have a preferred bidder. The report outlines the planning policy, public engagement, marketing and bidder selection process undertaken to secure that partner. It is great to be able to move this project to the next stage. This will deliver real benefits for the immediate area and for our city. New housing, including a substantial amount of affordable housing, a much wanted convenience store, repeatedly right throughout the history of all consultation in the area, coming across as the #1 priority for local residents. Better pedestrian routes, a new state-of-the-art care home for our city. It ends the blight of the derelict depot site. Although it's been empty for 7 years, it has been actively used as the depot for the leisure centre construction and for Barfield car park construction, and still for a short period longer is the store for our stones and bones that we keep as a local authority. But it is time to take it to the next stage. And importantly, in making this site available for development will also provide a capital receipt which improves the funding that's available for us to use right across the district. This was a question that came up in scrutiny last night. By having a capital receipt, reducing our borrowing, that actually enables the council's financial position to improve and gives us greater ability to support activity right through the entire district. We did have a series of comments and questions raised at scrutiny that we need to come to, I think, after the initial discussion. And of course, we received a petition, and it's important that we give that proper consideration as well. I'm joined here today. We have Jeff Coe, Carolyn Egan, Neil Aitken, Simon Hendy, who are all available here to help with our discussions. But the first thing I'd like to do, we don't have any public deputations, is take deputations from councillors. So, Councillor Lee, would you like to come forward and make your comments on what's in front of us?
Thank you, Leader, and I'm sorry it wasn't a scrutiny last night. I had a pressing matter to deal with. I did listen to the playback on the YouTube video, and frankly, can I just say, I thought the voice of nature and the ecological considerations were very weak. There's lots to like about this in terms of the mixed use, but the claim of this disposal supports greener, faster with sustainable housing designs and other aspects is questionable. The proposal and design framework don't seem to be fully underpinned by some of the updated realities in the new climate and nature crises. My first question is how essential are the capital receipts to Winchester's finances for our funding position and liabilities? Can the closure of the deal be delayed to improve our design framework, or can we improve the design framework and move ahead with the deal, but ensuring that it's a timely culmination point? The delay will provide an opportunity to update and future-proof the design framework and perhaps to allow adjustments for the National Planning Policy Framework planning consultation outcomes in 2025. As the paper says, the design framework provides the context to inform the preparation and determination of planning applications with ultimate decisions taken in accordance with planning policies, rather than the design framework in isolation. However, parts of the framework are referenced and benchmarked against outdated 4 to 8 year old plans, which is very worrying and frankly, I don't understand. These outdated plans include a local plan soon to expire, a Barr Sports Leisure Park Design Framework 2018, a 2016 Highcliffe Community Plan. Plus, there is no clear reference to the updated climate plan, our CNAP version 2 2023, and our nature emergency declaration in September 23. In particular, resolutions 1 to 6, and especially the need to consider the impact on nature's recovery in all strategic plans, policy areas, and decision-making processes. Resolutions 6 and 7 also need the strongest conditioning in the disposal contract to ensure the strongest protections of the River Itchen, along with fit to receive considerations for the emerging county local nature strategy due in 2025. We cannot rely on the goodwill of the developers in planning, or perhaps the increasing weight of the emerging next local plan to deliver higher sustainability and resilience standards for the existential risks we face. A real concern is that the out-of-date design framework is too human-centric. There is reference to permeability considerations for people and vehicle movements, but not for nature. Can a permeability plan or consideration be created? This is critical as more nature refuge is taking refuge in our urban and peri-urban areas. I can point you to the DEFRA study. The mention of environmental enhancements, a new green corridor linking the park with the South Downs Way, and enhancements to the perimeter landscape of biodiversity have been proposed, but this is still too people-centric. Similarly, the local environment management plan, the LEMP, is too site-specific. It's not about nature permeability with a wider outlook. Creating a buffer of the natural vegetation along the northern boundary of the depot site, zone 1. Okay, I understand that I understand that, but it's too short-sighted. Why not use the land twice for ecological restoration and wildlife corridors? Can this be amended? The absence of the biodiversity-centric design approach, given the nature crisis, is stark. The local nature recovery links from Barr End site, Sports Leisure Park areas to River Itchen and South Downs National Park. The wildlife corridors connect connections from Garrison Ground, King George V playing fields and the River Itchen to facilitate wildlife movement, and ecological integration between urban and natural spaces is essential. So can I ask for a future-proofing update to the design framework to make sure that we include ecological networks for nature recovery and protection? And to just to pick up on your comments last night, Councillor Todd, I have visited the site, and I appreciate this is difficult, but it's not impossible. And can we strengthen the chalk stream protection buffer with nature-based solutions along the River Itchen to protect the chalk stream ecosystems from potential pollutants and urban runoff? Can this be included in the design framework, not just leave it to the local plan? And finally, where is the vision for the energy efficient, near self-sufficient passive house build standards with net zero energy generation and storage? And I appreciate this is pushing the beyond perhaps the local plan, current or future, and the future home standard, but I think we should be aspirational and ambitious and laying this out in our design framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Horrell.
Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak once again this morning. This is a good opportunity to use brownfield land to add further houses to our area, which we're obviously coming under pressure to deliver, and also as part of a mixed-use desire for the site. However, can I ask why we have not ensured before the deal is signed that the affordable homes allocation is retained by the City Council? We know that land is at a premium, so to sell our own land and then not be assured the affordable allocation comes back to us seems a poor outcome. Please can we commit to this being achieved and amend the paper accordingly? In addition, the freehold sale is not ideal, as a key council asset will be lost forever, and a better understanding of why this acquisition, this freehold sale is so important council finances would be helpful. And I question, how is the proposed sale complementary to the Sport and Leisure Park as asserted in the report? The absence of any overt tie into the neighbouring sport and leisure park is disappointing, such as the proposed development of a rehabilitation centre by a firm such as Hobbs, or as a centre of excellence for use by the armed forces, as was actively investigated under the previous administration. We have one of the most modern hydrotherapy facilities in the county, and yet we've not maximised the health and well-being opportunities the depot site could offer in conjunction with our own outstanding facility. Can you confirm these points are outweighed by the proposed purchase price and is why they have been rejected? What is the essential healthcare provision for senior residents in the district promised in the report? It is not clear to me. One of the key concerns of local residents has been the increase in traffic and parking related to the development of the site. How are we addressing this issue with 115 staff working on site and the associated traffic with the convenience store? We already know highways issues exist in this part of town. Can the Cabinet explain why it has taken 7 years for the administration to come forward with a proposal? What has delayed this opportunity for so long? COVID interrupted activity, I understand, but not for this length of time, and the groundwork for the next steps were completed a long time ago. Chair, after such an extended period of time, the project still seems to have a number of key unanswered questions in the report. Scrutinising the paper less than 24 hours before your decision is not good scrutiny. It's just a tick box exercise. I hope you will take on board these points that myself and other councillors have raised, and that you will give due consideration to this paper before signing it off today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Horrell. So a range of points there that we will work through. The first in terms of the environmental policies, and I suppose I have a question for probably Mrs. Adey in terms of where we stand with, for example, biodiversity net gain, and whether that's something that's now required by national planning standards and the NPPF. There's a wider question as to whether updating a design framework of this kind would have any teeth in the planning process. I suspect it would not, but that would be useful to get clarity as well. And I'd also like clarity, because my recollection, and maybe I need to be corrected on this, was that part of the submission process for developers was to explain how they would achieve the objectives of the council, or support the objectives of the council plan and our plan priorities. So I believe we have asked potential applicants in the process what their thoughts were on environmental questions. And that was used, or that was reflected in the decision-making process, but maybe a bit more clarity on that as well. And that may be one for Mr. Coe or Mr. Hendy. But perhaps Mrs. Adey, if you could just answer the initial points.
Thank you, Leader. So starting with biodiversity net gain, the legislation is already in place and is being followed by all applicants for the offsetting of and making sure that sites brought forward have a net gain there. This is supported with our new local plan, which, as you said earlier in your introductions, has met its milestone of closing of consultation on the weekend. So the adoption of our plan next year, should that go ahead, will further support and contains strength in regards to biodiversity net gain, which, if runs to planned timetable, will be ahead of a planning application for this site. So the current requirements for biodiversity net gain are strengthened by legislation and will be further strengthened by our local plan when it's adopted. The methodology of updating a design framework, to be able to update something that can be adopted alongside a local plan, needs to go through a full consultation and examination. That's not something we would usually do for anything for a site of this size. That's a large piece of work we would do for a broader site. So it would be unusual for us to do that. Should we decide to take that, should you want to consider that today and take that option? Totally top of my head, but I would estimate you'd be delaying the development by probably 18 months to 2 years. And then, touching on something you've also mentioned, we will have the NPPF consultation outcome from the government. And until we've got that, we won't understand whether a design framework holds any planning weight at all. So there are a lot of unknowns in that proposal, as opposed to moving ahead today with regards to the knowns you've got on the table.
Thank you very much indeed. And it's very reassuring to know that the full weight of all the biodiversity and other similar policies that we put forward, the ambitious environmental policies that we have in our local plan, are likely to be in force in the area ahead of a planning application coming forward for this site. And then the second question was, the second item related to whether there'd been any discussion with potential developers throughout the process in terms of how they fulfil the objectives of the council plan.
Yes, thank you, Leader. That was part of the assessment of the proposals received from bidders, and I think it's paragraph 11.7 in the report sets out an overall sort of assessment of the proposals, and in particular, because this point was raised last night at scrutiny, the recommended proposal here scored lower in terms of assessment in relation to planning policy and borrowing framework compliance. That was based on advice received from our planning colleagues in relation to the proposals from the developers, and reflected the level of density from the recommended development. You've already made the point, of course, that point at which developer brings forward any planning application will be judged in relation to the policies that are in place at that point in time, which will reflect your council plan and ambitions.
Thank you. Some other questions that we need to quickly go through. The question's been raised as to whether and how the affordable homes could, or whether we could require allocation of the affordable homes to the city council. What was the basis for that recommendation?
Thank you, Leader. At the moment, there is no requirement for the developer to sell us the affordable housing, although we're in very active negotiations with them. In effect, we have first refusal for the affordable housing there. If we're not successful in securing the affordable housing that's secured by another registered provider, of course, we will have nomination rights to those properties, so the affordable housing won't be lost to the district. The impact of that will be flowing back through the development in terms of the offer price that the developer's making, so it won't be a total loss for the local authority. And of course, we won't be paying the price that's required by the competition with other registered providers.
Thank you. And a related question, the question of a freehold sale versus a presumably a long lease, sort of however many years, 1,000 years, 600 years, 300 years.
The market for this type of development requires a freehold and is very reluctant to purchase on long leasehold basis. So there's little to be gained in granting a extra long ground lease on this. Only liability for the council potentially.
Thank you. And then a discussion about the hydrotherapy pool. The hydrotherapy pool, I think, is owned by the Pindar Trust, supported Pindar Trust. I suppose the immediate question which would feed into this discussion is there a problem with usage at the moment, or is it more or less at full capacity? Do we know the situation on that?
Thank you, Leader. For the last 3 quarters, it's been at 95% capacity. So the hydrotherapy pool, I wouldn't expect a hydrotherapy pool to reach 100% capacity, because obviously the staff that run it need training and time to deal with their administration. So it is running at full capacity. It's performing really well.
That's useful perspective. So we're not in a situation where bringing in extra nearby facilities in order to ensure its use would do anything other than crowd out other users who are currently using it. Thank you. There's a question about traffic and parking. I mean, that's presumably handled through the planning process and through highways input. Although it is important to say that obviously a care home may have a lot of staff, but it is a 24/7 operation and they're not all there at the same time. But that is a planning issue and would be a planning issue, frankly, even if we were developing this ourselves in terms of what the parking and access arrangements are, and therefore a matter for the Highway Authority. There's a question about whether we need the money. Chief Executive, we need the money.
Thank you, Leader. Our Deputy 151 is in the room with us, Neil Aitken, today, but members will recall, of course, that in our last budget and medium-term financial strategy, the council, like many others, is facing a critical funding situation and over future years is projected to need to make at least 10% reduction in the base budget, which is the sum of approximately £3 million in the first year, and that increases. That information is all in the public domain, printed last February, and our finance team is currently reworking the figures to create the new MTFS, looking over a 4-year horizon and the budget for next year. So every council is having to make important decisions around how to maintain services and deliver the best for our residents, and certainly the opportunity for a capital sum helps us pay down the debt that the council uses internally to support other fantastic provision that it makes across the district. You've heard one today, and indeed the leisure centre itself was funded by internal borrowing from the council to a sum of 40 million, delivered and opened during the COVID pandemic, and is an absolutely fantastic facility for the district. But it comes at a cost to the council, and we must always consider future sources of income, both capital and revenue, to ensure we maintain services for our residents. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. And then there was a brief discussion about how long it's taken, this particular project. So Mr. Coe, did the pandemic have any impact on the process of property development and marketing new projects?
I think it's fair to say it did, but we can wind the clock back a little bit further before then, because the site was used by the contractors building the leisure centre. It was an essential part of the construction process, so it was out of action until 2020, and then yes, the pandemic hit, and that took 18 months out of the marketing timetable. There was no market for selling it, and the Cabinet gave approval for the timing of marketing to be at the most beneficial moment. So we kicked the process off in June 22 with expressions of interest into the market to see who was out there. We got 47 expressions of interest back, and then we spent a considerable amount of time and energy engaging with the local community. So there was a significant delay in the process of marketing because we were engaging with the community and getting feedback from them. So the 7 years is taken up and accounted for, I think, fairly legitimately.
Thank you very much indeed. I think we've covered the main points made by visiting councillors. The next item I'd like to quickly ask is, do Cabinet have any particular questions they'd like to ask about the paper? Yes, Councillor Porter.
Thank you. I noted the comments from scrutiny, and I think it just needs a bit of exploration of the conversation about the healthcare that's going to be provided. It would be useful, I think, to bring that out in the conversation here.
Yes, that's a very good point. We will go through each of the scrutiny minute. In fact, maybe we'll do that now. But let's start with the wording of item 6 within the purpose statement.
Not just item 6, though. I mean, it's the conversation about healthcare generally.
And the conversation about healthcare generally and the role of care, elderly care within the healthcare system.
I just wanted to acknowledge the scrutiny point there.
No, I think it's a helpful point. And there was some confusion about what the exact arrangement is with the care home, which maybe would be useful to be clarified. I don't know if that's one for Mr. Hendy or Mr. Coe.
So yes, there are three blocks in the proposed scheme. At the eastern end is a senior living, McCarthy and Stone proposition. In the middle is a separately run third-party care home, 72 beds, and then on the western end is the affordable housing with the ground floor convenience store. So the central block, being the care home, would be developed by a third-party care home operator for retaining it in their own portfolio. So it is quite a separate and distinct offering from the preferred bidders proposition on the eastern side.
Thank you. And as we know, everything we're hearing from the government at the moment is saying that a joined up approach to health and care is something that's absolutely essential. Chief Executive, you had a comment or question.
Thank you, Leader. As members are aware, I support the Chair of Scrutiny, so had the pleasure of being at the meeting last night, and colleagues in the room were also at the meeting. And as Councillor Horrell said, the meeting was last night, and we need to bring forward the considerations of scrutiny to this meeting today. And the resolutions which are available this morning were cleared with the Chair last night. And as Councillor Lee says, the tape is on. Sorry, that's very 1980s, isn't it? The recording is on YouTube. But there was, if it's helpful to Cabinet, there was a full discussion and consideration of the scheme as Jeff Coe has just outlined. And what's important is that the very first points that were made were around, in fact, the scale and the proposed use of the site. And in fact, Leader, it's a matter you'll come to. That also speaks to the petition which Council has handed to this committee, this Cabinet to consider. And that indeed includes the consideration that was given last night into, has the Council truly heard the views of residents, which is why, Leader, you took a brief adjournment in order to look at a set of display boards that were available at the consultation. So there were questions and explorations last night on the use of the site. As Councillor Porter has just indicated, there was a conversation and discussion last evening around whether the use of the site fulfilled the use and the description of essential healthcare, and there were questions raised around GP provision for that. But I think if members considered the report, the report talks in that this development would support the essential healthcare of senior residents, and indeed that is reflected in the proposed or potential use of the site. Other matters, just to complete, Leader, forgive me, there was discussion last night around the importance of biodiversity and the natural environment, and the importance of the adjacency and connectivity between this site and other open space. And you've touched on that already, and I'm sure there'll be further conversation in exempt session around the proposed deal that is on the table, the offer that is available to the council, and what that means. And I would just ask members that we refrain to keeping the discussion on the finances within the exempt session. But if that's helpful, Cabinet, that indeed was, I believe, an overview of what was said last night. I'm just glancing at other officers that were in the room under those headings. And Leader, you have then the 4 resolutions from scrutiny for you to consider with Cabinet today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, and I'll quickly talk through those 4 resolutions. So the first is that the results of the 2022 consultation be made available. We've looked at the boards that were presented back at that consultation, or rather that were presented at the meeting subsequent to that consultation, and they will be added as a PDF to the record of this meeting. So we've had a look at those, and they will be made available. The second is that further consideration be given to the parking access and provision related to the convenience store and potential of impact on nearby residents. I think there was concern that there might be access from Milland Road. Certainly, if you look at the Appendix 2, which relates to which is the Bahrain design framework, it very clearly shows that access is out of the leisure centre car park in that particular case. And certainly, I think that is a matter for the Highway Authority as soon as it goes beyond that car park. And we're talking about any traffic movements on the highway, and that will be a question for the developer to resolve with the Highway Authority. To review the climate section to ensure statements made relate to what the council is able to influence. And so I think there is a point here that this is a disposal. We've talked about how the very strong environmental and biodiversity and climate plans of the local plan are set to be in place if adopted ahead of a decision made on this. And I would still like clarity that we did ask for the developers for their opinion on environmental issues as part of their submission. I think we did. I'm seeing heads nodding. And then reviewing the wording of item 6 within the purpose statement. So let's just quickly look at that. Page 78, include essential healthcare provision for senior residents of the district. Is that something that needs rephrasing? I mean, it's not part of the decision process. When we say essential healthcare, we're saying effectively that those people who are resident in the care home will have access to suitable healthcare within that setting. Is that what is intended by that?
Leader, perhaps we can help. I mean, there's a proposal on the table from the developer in terms, as Jeff has set out, in terms of senior living residential care home. If a residential care home is developed and brought forward by a third party, that will be a registered activity with the Care Quality Commission in terms of personal care and nursing care on that site. And that's what that sentence is referring to. For a residential care home to operate, it will need to be registered and provide that level of service. Otherwise, it's not going to be a residential care home.
Thank you. At this stage in the process, do we know exactly what mix of provision there might be between nursing care, palliative care, respite care, regular care? So, okay. Mr. Coe.
There's probably two ways of interpreting essential in the reading of this report. One is essential in terms of market demand, that there is demand in the marketplace for this, so it's essential in the sort of broader sense. And the other way of interpreting it is it's providing essential healthcare as a destination. I think both are true. Whether you drop the word the essential, I don't know, but there's two ways of interpreting it.
Very much indeed. And I know from my time as a county councillor that the bit of the system that is broken, I mean, firstly, any of us who have elderly parents will know that the barrier between care and healthcare becomes very thin in terms of how that whole system works. But secondly, I think what we all know is that care homes provide an absolutely essential part of the health system, and arguably a lot of the problems we have at the moment with the health system, with people being stuck in hospital who shouldn't be in hospital, are because we do not have adequate care provision, particularly in areas such as ours with an aging population. And so I'm in absolutely no doubt at all that having a high quality new care home in Winchester will improve care, not just for the people who are in there, but also for the many people who find themselves in hospital who shouldn't be there, and the people who are unable to access hospital because there are people in there who don't need to be in there. So to me, it's impossible to see this as anything other than an absolutely essential part of the health system in our district, and a very welcome addition to it. It's important. So I think we've covered the main items within the scrutiny minute. The other thing that we do need to adjust, respond to, because we said we would at full council in September, is the petition that was received from the Highcliffe Community Forum containing 329 signatures. Quote, we, the undersigned, request that Winchester City Council provide space for a community hub to serve Highcliffe and the local area in any redevelopment of the Bar End depot site. So that was the request we had in front of us. There was also a deputation made last night well, there were two deputations made. There was one made by Emma Back, but also Janet Berry from the Highcliffe Community Forum. There was a discussion about whether the depot proposal responds to all elements of the community plan. We discussed that at scrutiny last night, and did not receive a recommendation from scrutiny to ask us to look at that again. Obviously, we talked about the importance of the petition, about the depot site's high importance to residents. It's important to note that the document that we do have attached to this, Appendix 2, if you look at page 113 of the report, the only reference to community facilities in that report relates to the pavilions. And it's important to note that the pavilion refurbishment was not even referred to in the 2016 Highcliffe Community Plan. There was extensive there was consultation. I think Councillor Becker may be able to provide more perspective on this, but maybe not. It's before your time. On community use as far as was possible within the planning constraints of the height of the new KGB pavilion, which is where it was foreseen that community provision would be made in the Bar End framework, and then highlighted that they had made response to the Reg 18 local plan consultation, and at the consultation events that have been held at the depot site, expressed the forum's keenness to remain involved in discussions around future developments, and I think it will be important to keep them informed, make sure that they are informed of any planning consultations and planning process that we would expect during the rest of this process. Requested that the full results of the March and November depot consultations be published. We will get these boards published, and asking whether there would be a design framework review. Having heard that this would lead to an 18-month delay at a time when whatever happens with our current local plan, we are likely to be doing a very major review of the local plan. It's not something that I would suggest that we put priority on. I think what came up later in a strategy discussion was the current situation with community facilities right across the entire district. And I think rather than a rerun of a framework for the district, I think one of the things for us to think about in the next round of local plan work is whether we want, in the same way that we look at physical infrastructure like roads and broadband and water and electricity, that we also think about our social infrastructure, and whether there's whether that is the most efficient mechanism for investigating that. But that is a decision that sits outside where we are today. So I think, having looked at the detail of what's in front of us, looked at the new provision that has been made at the KGB pavilion in line with the RN framework, following consultation with the potential use, I think we we need to decide that we will not be providing space for a community hub on the depot site and reopening this procurement process, which that would inevitably involve. I mean, actually, could I just check that? If we were to put in place, say that we needed a community hub, what would be the process for that? Is that I don't know if that's a property question or a legal question. Would it blow up the procurement? Presumably.
Yes, it would. We need to start again on the procurement for that.
So I think, given the very heavy level of consultation throughout the entire process, given that at every stage of the consultation, what we have been told is the #1 priority for that community is a shop, We were told it in the Bahrain framework. We were told it in the consultation that we ran through the procurement process and the marketing of the site. We've seen the boards that are up there that confirm once again that that's the highest priority, that we are right to make the allocation on what is the highest priority for that community, which is the convenience store, and not to reopen the procurement. So are there any, so I think we've covered all the input we've received. Do people have any further, do Cabinet have any further questions? Any debate? We do have exempt papers. Would Cabinet colleagues like us to move into exempt and go through those papers in more detail? I think, do we need to do that, Chief Executive?
You have the financial model in the exempt papers, Leader, and clearly the outline heads of terms. So
I think those are issues that probably need consideration. Yes. Okay, so I see Councillor Porter, would you like to propose that we go into exempt session?
Go into exempt session.
Anybody to second that? I'll pick Councillor Westwood. Okay, so we are now going to move the discussion into exempt session to talk about two papers. That means that unfortunately everybody, members of the public and the press, now need to leave the room, and we have to stop streaming. Good, off we go. Good. Thank you for that discussion, colleagues. We'll now move into the last stretch. Do we have any further final questions? Any debate? Ms. Porter.
Thank you. I think this is a really useful and good use of this land. I just bearing in mind that it's been used for all sorts of things in the last decade, including a construction site or prepare so that the leisure centre could be built. I remember going on to visit even then. And it is a very brownfield site. Brownfield sites are very brownfield sites. So I'm really pleased that it's going to be used for something practical. Just the convenience store, I think having particularly being close to the leisure centre as well would be very popular, and therefore it's likely to be successful for local residents and the leisure centre users. It will provide fresh food as a result of that. I think that it will be really fresh food and be really important for residents locally who live nearby and may not have a car, and we know that many of those residents will not have a car. Just to reassure people that came to scrutiny last night, in my experience, actually in Alresford, the opportunities for not only people in the care home and the retirement home to be taking advantage of health opportunities, but also other people. So the MHA currently, for instance, does falls classes and sitting exercise classes in the McCarthy and Stone property in Alresford, and it's open to all. So it gives an opportunity for everybody to use it, not just the people in their own site. So I do think it will help the general opportunity around that area too. I'm just going to finish really to say I'm really keen. We're talking about public buildings as well. We've discussed that as pavilions, and I do appreciate that Highcliffe residents wanted to see something here, but they didn't really have clear views of what they wanted. Whereas we have buildings very close by that will be perfect for many uses for them. But I am really keen to make sure that our community infrastructure levy as a whole supports opportunities for health, well-being, social use and community support right across the district. And so I do happily accept the situation that we are not going to be putting that on this site. I think the convenience store will be really the great mover to greater health in this area, and apart from obviously the care home as well. So, and the affordable homes was something that that whole community really values as well. So I'm really positive about this site and look forward to it getting started.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much indeed, and thank you to Mr. Coe and his colleagues for all the work that they've done to bring us to this point. This is going to be good for the city. It's going to be good for Highcliffe residents. It's going to be good for our older population, and it's going to be good for the council as well. So it means that this brownfield site, there ain't no site more brownfieldy than this one, probably anywhere in Winchester. This brownfield site gets brought into productive use. There will be a brand new convenience store for the people of Highcliffe who have repeatedly told us that that is their #1 priority to improve that area. There will be new affordable housing. There will be new housing and care facilities for older people. And it comes in a context of where we have been supporting that community with a new play area at KGV, with a new community facilities in the new KGV pavilion. And I think the point that we will follow up on separately is we will continue to make sure and look across the district to see how we can get the community infrastructure we need to make sure that every community can thrive. We talked a lot about one district approach, and I think that's a really good area where that discussion needs to be held, looking at needs right across the city, right across the district. But I think in a situation where we have invested a large amount of money and provided new community facilities in the KGV pavilion, I think it's right to focus the benefit for the local community in terms of pedestrian access, but this community shop, that is the right decision. I wouldn't want to strip out the shop. So I realise that may be disappointing for some people, but you know, it will be seen as good news by the majority of people who have repeatedly told us in that area that a new shop is their biggest priority, a new convenience store. So the recommendations we have in front of us, colleagues, are relatively straightforward. We're being asked to approve a conditional freehold sale contract on the terms set out in the exempt heads of terms Appendix 5 that we just discussed, and that authority be delegated to the strategic director to agree final details of the contract of sale within the parameters set out in Appendix 5. Cabinet, is that agreed? Thank you very much indeed. We are now going to move to item 14, and that does take us into exempt, and apart from the discussion of the forward plan, in fact, we don't even have that on the agenda. That's it. Yeah.
Let's do the forward plan.
Shall we do the forward plan in public session? Why not? I'll change the agenda. Right, we're going to do the forward plan in public session. Do we have it on the agenda? There we go. Item 11. Yes, we'll move to item 11. We're asked to note the future items for consideration by Cabinet as part of the forward plan. Did I have somebody wanting to speak on this? Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Lee. Apologies for not having the right bit of paper in front of me. So we're asked to note the forward plan. Are you happy to note that, Cabinet?
Noted.
Thank you very much indeed. We will now move into exempt session, and for those members of the public and the press who are still here, I think we're not able to come out again, are we? Or are we able to come out for the final decision? It's pretty pink, isn't it? How exempt is the name of the paper even public?
I think, Leader, clearly the recommendations have the financial implication running through them, and it is pink. It is printed on pink. So I believe, and I'm sure the Director Leader can advise, if we take the item in pink, but then we can come out of pink and say that you've agreed the item in white, if that's what you do.
Can we introduce it? Not in pink, as long as we don't say anything.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yes.
So, look, how much of it is not pink? It's all pink. Okay. So we are now going to move to a discussion of acquisition of affordable homes at Hazley Road, Twyford. The paper that we in front of us has lots of confidential information. So we need to effectively move straight into exempt session, although we will come out of exempt session at the end to explain what decision we have just made, but without much in the way of detail that is confidential. So would somebody move the Councillor Porter? And Councillor Thompson has the chance to second. So it's always Councillor Porter who moves us into or out of exempt, but everybody else takes turns in seconding that. So we have a proposal to move into exempt. Are you happy to do so, Cabinet? Agreed? Good. Right. Can we stop transmission and move into exempt session?